Let's take a really quick look at what we're going to do in this section. We will be building a budget, and I have the instructions here at the top of the spreadsheet. And in just a few seconds, I'm going to fast forward through this spreadsheet. Don't worry the fact that it's going to go fast. I'm just going to kind of explain to you what's happening as it shows up on the screen. So you're going to be listing out how many people are attending a party and all of the things that they're going to be purchasing at the party, the quantity of those things, the price of each one, and getting a total numerical value, the dollar amount spent for several different items, adding in subtotal and sales tax, adding in a gratuity to get a final total for the expense of the party. And then after that's complete, you'll copy that best guess for what the party might be, change it out to give it a high estimate. More people are going to go, they're going to eat more expensive things, they're going to spend more on wine, and the tax will be higher, and you'll get a higher total amount spent. And then of course we'll copy that one more time to give a low estimate, so that we'll have, when all is done, a high, medium, and low estimate for the price of a holiday party. And the final thing we'll do is change the spreadsheet just a little bit around to look at some relative references, making the formulas a little bit more advanced, more dynamic in case the number of people attending the party changes or the sales tax change or anything changes. You can quickly go and update the spreadsheet, and we'll talk about the principles of making sure you don't repeat yourself in your code. Okay, to get started, let's just scroll down just a little bit. We're going to build this spreadsheet just here at the bottom. You could, if you wanted to, create a new workbook and make this all in a separate workbook, but I'll do this in a couple of ways. I'll do the answer down here, and then I'll make a new sheet where I bring everything over to 3 different sheets. So let's just do it all once right here, so we have all the information at the top as we work on the problem. Let's start by just putting the words best guess here at the top, and we're going to work on this formula first. That gives us a total value for this spot right here. We're going to work on it down in this space, and let's start here by just saying how many people there are that are attending the party. So let's put the number 20 in here by itself and hit the tab key, and in cell B23 say people attending the party. Okay, we're doing this for one really important reason, and that is if the number of people that change that are attending the party, we could always go in and just change this number later to 19 or to 18. You don't have to do this step, but there might be, and there often is, changes to the estimates that you make, and you want to be able to have the number in its own cell by itself. So you could always go in and change that number easily. The way I wrote it up top, the number 20 is inside of this string here, this text. So it's not easy to modify the spreadsheet with that number hidden inside or attached to a string. So we always want to get in the habit of separating the number from the text. So 20 people attending the party, that's how we set that up. And what we're going to do next is just go line by line, adding in all of the things that are listed above. So we could just put here appetizer 1, and if we wanted to, we could put BRUSCHETTA and hit enter, and appetizer 2, cheese, hit enter. And there are 3 different types of meals. Let's go ahead and write those out separately as well. So steak, enter, chicken, enter, and fish. And let's see what we have next. The dessert. So let's just put in desserts. And the wine, enter. So we have every single line item here separated out, one above the other. And right now, these 2 cells spill over into cell B. We have a couple of options. We could go up here between A and B and see where the cursor changes from the down arrow to the ones pointing left and right. We could left click and drag over to the right and make that fit so it's just looking a little bit nicer. And what we want to do here is put in cell B24, and if we wanted to, we could add a space later. Maybe we'll do that here in a second. Let's put the word quantity in here in cell B24, and cell C24, price, and in cell D24, total. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. we're going to put a number in each space right here, and then we're going to have a calculation tell us what is the total. So let's say for our best guess scenario, we thought that everyone would want an appetizer, so we'll put 1. And we thought everyone would want the second appetizer, so we'll put 1 as well. And the price for each one of these we have listed above. The bruschetta is $26, and the cheese spread is $20. The steak option is at $25. The chicken is $18, and the fish is $20. The desserts are $7 per person, and the wine is $8 per person. Okay, so we have our prices listed in here. We've started the quantity. We're going to finish out the quantity now. So we know that there are 20 people attending the party. So these 3 numbers are the meals, and they have to add up to 20. There are a couple different ways we could do this, but the simplest way is to just go ahead and kind of force it. So it could be that most people are going to eat steak. They want the most expensive option when they're at a holiday party. It's not their money that they're spending. The company is spending it on their behalf. So maybe we think a lot of people are going to get steak out of that 20 total people. So we put in 15 here. Maybe 3 people say that they want chicken and 2 people say that they want fish. Now you could go around and ask your fellow employees, what would you like to eat? And go ahead and model in how many people said steak, chicken, and fish, and go ahead and write in those numbers. But oftentimes in Excel, we're just guessing. We're getting that first number in there to look at what would the total be, how much are we spending, and then we'll use that information to help guide whether or not we ask people to maybe only eat steak or only eat chicken or fish, or we have to take out the dessert option, or we have to tell people that if they want dessert, they're going to have to pay for it themselves, or wine, they're going to have to pay for that themselves. So what we're going to do is just put in numbers to help us give us that first guide, and then we can adjust from there. So let's just go ahead and assume that everyone wants dessert as well. And again, lots of different ways you could do that, but let's just put in 20 here, because 20 people, that's the quantity, that's the number of desserts we're going to buy, is listed here next to the price, and that's going to give us the right total in a second. And for wine, maybe it's people order more than 1 glass, and so we could put 30. Okay. Lots of different ways we could do this. I'm going to show you a simple version first and a more advanced version here in the next video. So what we want to do next is get a total for each one of these lines. And hopefully based on your viewing the previous videos, you already have an idea of what you need to do here. And if you want to do any kind of formula, you need to start with an equal sign. And what we're going to do is take B25, we're referencing cell B25, and we're going to take it times the price, or multiplied by the price of C25. Okay, so that's going to tell us how much are we going to spend on appetizers, at least that one appetizer. We're going to spend $26. That makes sense, right? We bought one appetizer, it was $26, we paid in total $26. Okay, now you could go and do this line by line where we did this quantity multiplied by this, and that would be fine, but there's a faster way to do it. Okay, we've learned a couple of different ways to execute the copy and paste option. I'll show you all those now. We can go back up to this cell, and in the bottom right hand corner, you see the 2 black bars crossing each other. When you see your cursor change to that in the bottom right hand corner, this tells you that it's ready to perform a copy and paste. If you left click and drag, so left click and drag down, that performs a copy and paste to the rest of the cells. And if we want to go and check to make sure that it worked correctly, we click on the last cell, go up here and click the formula bar, and indeed it's taking the numbers that we want to multiply together to give us our result. And I hit either enter or escape to get out of the edit mode. So there we have it. We have a value for each total for each line item. Appetizers, steak, the meal, the dessert, and the wine. And we could easily go in here and adjust this and say, you know what? It seems like the group is going to want to have 2 of these appetizers and they're $20 a piece, so that's $40 total. But let's go back and change this to 1 just to keep this way for now. Let's put down here the word subtotal. And what we're going to do is another formula adding up all of those totals along here. Okay, and let's do equals, and we're going to use the sum function, SUM, with an open parentheses, and I'm going to hit the up arrow to start highlighting the cells that we want to sum or add. Okay, sum means add. I don't know why the Excel creators didn't use the word add, but that's just the way it is. Let's hit the up arrow, and we've now selected D31, and if you hold down the shift key and hit the up arrow, it starts to highlight the entire region of numbers that you want to add. So we have D25 to D31, that's exactly what we want. We needed to do a close parentheses, that's shift 0. So we have equals sum, that range of numbers that we want to add, and then hit enter. And there we have it, $895 up to this point is what we're spending on all of the food options for this party. So there's a very simple budget, but we have a couple more line items that we need to add in to give us a real cost of this party. And that is that the restaurant charges a gratuity fee of 20%. And also we have a restaurant charge of a sales tax. This is from the government that we need to pay. Okay, so let's do the sales tax first. And put in a line item for that. And let's do equals for the sales tax. We want to do 6%, so 0.06 times the subtotal, or D32, and I just hit the up arrow to give us that. So we need to take 6% of this number, hit enter, and we get $53.70. Now we could just do something like adjusted subtotal here, or we could put subtotal with tax and equals. And now we want to add those two numbers again, sum, open parentheses, hit the up arrow, and hold on the shift key, hit the up arrow again, close parentheses, and now we have an adjusted subtotal that includes the tax. There is another quick way to do this I want to show you real fast, just to prove to you that there's more than one way to do any of these things. Let's do just over on the side. You don't have to do this step. I just want to show you that it's possible. We could have done equals to get $948. We could have done $895, the subtotal, times 1.06. So instead of doing 6% of $895 and getting $53.70, we could have done it all in one step and said, let's take 1.06 times this number to give us $948.70. I just wanted to show you this other step to show you step by step that when you put things out line by line like this, it makes it much easier to read and understand that we had a subtotal. The sales tax was $53.70. Now we have an adjusted subtotal. And of course, we had one line item left, and that is the gratuity. So in the United States, the gratuity is just a tip. It's an extra thank you, more money given to the wait staff to for them to collect as part of the total bill. And it is a cultural norm to give a gratuity. And in the cases of big parties at different restaurants, they'll charge a gratuity. They'll mandate a gratuity, so you have to pay it. You don't have the option to. So normally you have the option to, but for big parties, they charge typically 20%. And so we're going to do equals. This time we'll do the shortcut here. And I'm sorry, we'll do by steps again. So 0.2 times, and this time we want to take it times the subtotal. Okay, so you get to calculate the tip based on a subtotal. Some people do it based on the adjusted, but technically speaking, this is how restaurants typically suggest is doing the gratuity of 20% times the subtotal. And what that's saying here when I hit enter is that we're going to give an additional $179 to the waitstaff, to the restaurant, to divide amongst themselves. And that's just for going above and beyond. Okay, so that's enough about gratuity. So let's go for the actual final total. Okay, and we'll do equals sum. And this time we're going to write the formula a little bit differently. We don't want the entire range of numbers. Okay. Let's just go like this and write, how about, just to show you that there's more than one way to do it, D35 colon D34. So the adjusted subtotal, comma, another or the gratuity, comma, the adjusted subtotal. So just to show you that you can use commas and you can select different cells anywhere. It doesn't have to be a range when you use sum. You can just select multiple cells and you can keep adding them in if you'd like. But here we only have two numbers. We're going to separate them by a comma, hit enter, and there we have the adjusted subtotal. Let me hit the formula bar here, plus the gratuity, gives us the final total of $1,127.70. So remember, this is our best guess. We think that people are going to order one appetizer of bruschetta at $26, one appetizer of cheese at $20, 15 people will get steak at $25, and so on. And this gives us a final estimate to be able to provide to our boss or our manager and say, this is what I think the total price of the party is going to be. Now, again, they're probably going to want to know, well, what if we change some of these numbers around? What if we decided to have a really great party for our employees? What would be the most that we would spend? Or what if we had a really tight budget, we don't have that much money? What could we change here to make this number smaller? So let's go up here and do the best guess cell, that's B18, and hit equals, and scroll down. You could have hit the down arrow or the right arrow, and click on the result here of D36, and just hit enter. So what this does is it just puts that value that we came up with below down here. And if we wanted to make this look better, we could highlight all of these cells here, C25 down to D36. I just left clicked in the cell right here. I use the left click in the middle of the cell, and I clicked and drag. So I've got click and hold, left click and hold, and drag, and then right click anywhere inside of here and do format cells and currency. And I could take off the decimal places and hit OK. So the numbers will show as a dollar amount. And notice that it doesn't take the formatting with it. It just only brings the value. So we would also have to do the formatting for these three cells as well. So I'm just going to highlight these three cells, right click, format cells, currency, take off the decimal places, and hit OK. All right, so there we have the best guess. Let's work on developing a high budget and tight budget next. Here is one of the best features of Microsoft Excel. We just finished the best guess scenario where we came up with a number of $1,128 for this party. And you might think that we have to build everything from scratch one more time. And in fact, that's what makes Excel awesome, is that you can go and now highlight all of these cells. So we can go to A23. I can hold down the shift key and hit the right arrow a couple of times, hit the down arrow several times, and highlight all of the cells that we used to set up maybe what we would call a template of our spreadsheet. And we can hit Control C or Command C. Okay. And then go over to cell maybe F23 to give us some space, and hit Command or Control V, Victor, to paste. Okay. And we could change this now from best guess to, let's do the high estimate. So now we have a block of text that's going to help us for the best guess. Now we have a new one for the high estimate. 20 people are still attending the party. And let's go around and change some of these numbers. We could change the quantity to 2 because we're going to do 2 appetizers now for the first one. And let's do 3 appetizers for the cheese. And you can see that the text here is hidden. So we could go between F and G and left click and drag over to the right. And we can make that so it's big enough to see. And just scroll over to the right. Again, we have all of our things that we had before, the layout that we had. And we could say that maybe one more person is going to buy steak. And one less person is going to buy chicken. And maybe, actually, yeah, let's do 18. Let's do one person gets chicken and 3 people do fish. It's a little bit more expensive to buy fish. And this adds up to 20. Okay. And we have everyone getting a dessert the first time, but let's say everyone bought the dessert and then maybe 10 people went back for more. Okay, so we bought 30 total desserts, and not only did everyone buy 2 or get 2 glasses of wine, but some people even went back for a third, So let's say that we ended up buying 45 glasses of wine. So we really had a great time. We bought lots of wine, and we have 45 total glasses at $8 a piece. That's $360 in just wine alone. Again, just to verify any one of these line items, you can come up here and click on the formula bar and see that it's still doing the right calculation. So the subtotal is all of these numbers still added together. The sales tax has been adjusted to take 6% of this number. So you're seeing that everything is being recalculated based on your new numbers, which is exactly what we want. We have an adjusted subtotal. Gratuity is 20% of a higher number. And there we have it, a final total of $1,462. You can see that this is more expensive. This is the high estimate than our best guess of $1,128. Let's go back up here. And for the high budget, we'll do equals. And we'll scroll back down and we'll click on this cell right here to reference cell I-36 and hit enter. So now we have a high budget, 1,462, a best guess of 1,128, and we still need to calculate a tight budget where we don't have that much money to spend. So let's do that step. Same thing we did before. Let's go to cell F21. You can see how we're moving a lot faster now. Go to cell F21, hold down the shift key and hit the right arrow over a couple of times and down, and Command C or Control C on a Windows. Hit the right arrow over a few times to go to cell K21. Hit Command V or Control V. Let's resize between K and L again. And let's do 0 this time for the expensive appetizer. And maybe we could still go ahead and offer our employees a cheese appetizer, but it's going to be less expensive, so that's okay. And let's say only 10 people got steak and 10 people ordered chicken, and we took fish off of the options. So we don't even allow people to buy fish. And we maybe still want to be able to offer dessert, so we still say that's 20, but we also take out the wine option. So if people are going to buy wine, they're going to pay for it themselves. The company's not going to pay for it. And so we have an option here to do that. And here's what we have now as the final number, $743. So if we offer no wine to our employees, we take away the fish option, we still give everyone dessert. People are split between steak and chicken. We give one appetizer. We're only spending $743. Let's go back over here to the far left. For the tight budget, do equals, the last step that we did before on the others. Click on cell N36, hit enter, and there we have it. A really simple, very easy budget put together for something like a party. And you could do this exact same format or template for any kind of budget, where even the most complicated budgets can follow this exact format, where you have different kinds of options of what things are going to cost. You're not always sure what the outcome is going to be, but you can guess to get started, and you could do a best, high, and low, so that the person making the final decision about what they want to spend, it's easy for them to now look at these three numbers and say, okay, let's go for it. Let's spend a lot of money on the party. We think our employees are amazing, and we want to spend money on them to reward them. So let's have the party that costs $1,400. So I hope you see that once you build the first format, you built the template for the first thing, it's really easy to then make the second and third. We didn't set this spreadsheet up perfectly, but it's good enough. It helps us understand what the analysis we're trying to make. What we're going to see next is that we want to try and stay away from doing something like 20 here, where there's no formulas built in, where this is 20 because we forced it to be. We typed in 15, 3, and 2, but we could make it so that it's more dynamic, that if we changed the number of people attending the party from 20 to 18, it would change this cell and that one, the one for the high estimate and the low estimate, and it would also change the values down here as well. So that's something that would make this spreadsheet even better, and we're going to work on doing the advanced version of this in the next set of videos. Before I show you a little bit better version of the solution that we came up with, the budget example, I'd like to show you one of the most important ideas in Microsoft Excel. And it has to do with a programming principle, actually, that software developers use called dry code. And I'll show you with a Google search what dry code means here before we even start. And it stands for do not or don't repeat yourself. This software development principle applies to any software development language such as JavaScript, C++, Python. It's all the same, and it actually applies to Microsoft Excel as well. So what I'm going to do here is just open up a brand new sheet. Again, I just click the plus button, and I'll zoom in here to about 300% and show you something that's pretty closely related to the last example in which we had a subtotal amount. And let's just say that this subtotal is $1,000 and that we have a tax and it is 6%. And we want to say maybe what is the tax amount. So really what we're looking for here is what is 6% of 1,000. Now what I did in the previous example is I did equals and I correctly referenced, and this is a relative cell reference on B1 because it has no dollar signs. I used a relative reference of B1, but then I typed in times 0.06. Now hopefully you see the difference here between referencing cell B1, like I did correctly, and incorrectly not referencing 0.06. Sometimes we get lazy in Microsoft Excel. We're in the middle of writing a formula and it feels more simple to just go ahead and write 0.06 in. I strongly encourage you to stop that behavior as soon as you can and try and get in the habit of writing anytime you see a number in a formula, that you write that number in a separate cell by itself and you reference that cell. So I'm going to go ahead and show you both techniques here and why you want to reference that cell. Let's go ahead and press enter, and you correctly see that $60 is 6% of 1,000. And of course, it's giving us the right answer. It is taking 6% of 1,000. That's what we want. But this is not dry code. In other words, we're going to have to repeat ourselves if we ever want to change this 0.06. And let's take a look at what I mean by that. Let's say that we had all different kinds of subtotals up here. Like this is 752. And this one is 944. And this one is 2,567. Doesn't matter what the numbers are. I'm just filling in some fake numbers here. And let's say that we wanted to create what the tax amount was for each one of these if it is 6%. Okay, and what I'm going to do for a shortcut here is just click on this cell and copy and paste 0.06 to the right. Okay, and we wanted to calculate what the tax amount is for 6% of this number. Now it would take a lot if we went and hit equals and did a cell reference for C1 times 0.06, and we did this all the way across. What would be much better is if we know that we only need to type the tax rate in once, that we always just refer to this one cell. So let's go back to cell B3 and change this 0.06 to reference cell B2. Okay. And let's go over here, do the same thing. C1 times B2. And here again, D1 times B2. And here again equals E1 times B2. Now, what we can do really is clear out all of these cells. I'm just going to left click and drag from the middle of the cell over to the right, and right click and clear contents. And what's really nice about using cell references like B2 here, B2 again, B2 on this one, and B2 on this one, is that if I ever just change this one time, let's say to 0.07, because the tax rate changed, all of these numbers are going to be automatically changed as well, because each one of them refers back to this number. So this is referring to this number times this. This one is taking this number times this. This one is taking D1 times B2. And for that reason, we only need to change this once. So we do not have to repeat ourselves. So we have dry code. Don't repeat yourself. You shouldn't have to type in 0.06 every single time or 0.07 every single time. You should only ever write it one time and then refer to it for all of these cells. This idea is going to come up again and again in your experience in this class, and so I hope it's something that you practice and you see the value of very early on. Now let's go back to the simple solution that we had for the budget, and we see that we have repeated ourselves here where we typed in 20 people attending the party 3 separate times, and there's no reason to do that because we know that this number isn't going to change across the 3 scenarios. So of course these could for the different conditions. This was our best guess and these numbers change. In our high budget, we're going to have very different numbers here in quantity than we had over here. And in our low budget, we're going to have very different quantities than we had over here. So what we really should be thinking of is in F23, just go ahead and hit delete. And in G23, delete that as well. Go over here to K24, and click delete as well for those two. And we should make everything reference this one section where it's just 20 people attending the party. And if you wanted to, you could move these 2 cells somewhere else in the spreadsheet. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's highlight these 2 cells. I'm just going to left click in the center of this cell and drag to the right. And I'm going to move the cursor down to the bottom edge of this shaded region where my cursor changes to a hand. I'm going to left click and drag, and I'm going to move that up here. So it becomes more clear that this is kind of overseeing all 3 budgets, that 20 people attending the party is true for all 3 categories. And let's do something else here where we add one more column. Here we're in column A. Let's right click this time in column A. So move your cursor up here just above the A. Anywhere in the shaded green region here is fine. And right click and choose insert for a new column. And this time we're going to try something new where we estimate the percentage of people that are going to get steak, chicken, or fish. And we're going to assume maybe in this first scenario that 80% of people choose chicken, and how about 15% of people choose chicken. And we know that if 80% chose that plus another 15, that's 95. So 5% left for making these add up to 100%. We can highlight all of these cells, so I can click here. I could left click and drag, or I can click on the cell, hold on the shift key and hit the down arrow twice. And if you look in the bottom part of Excel, it usually tells you by default what the sum is, and it says 1 here, so that's my quick check to see yes, these do add up to 1 or 100%. And instead of writing 15, 3, and 2 here, we're going to do something much more dynamic, one that takes advantage of this idea of dry code talked about in the previous video. Let's do here equals, and let's refer to this 80%. And let's do 80% times the number of people attending the party. So I'm just hitting the up arrow and the right arrow here to get to cell F17. And we do need something special here for F17 if we're going to copy and paste this formula down. We're going to need to put $signs. I'll show you why after we hit enter. And if we go back up to cell C27 and we want to copy and paste this formula, we need the reference to cell F17 to stay in position. Otherwise, as we drag this formula down, it's going to think that we're referencing numbers below 20 when in fact there are no numbers below 20. So let's go in the bottom right hand corner of this cell, C27, where the cursor changes to 2 black bars intersecting, and left click and drag all the way down to fish and see what happens here. If we click on fish, just left click on cell C29 and click on the formula bar, we see that it's taking 5% of 20, which is 1. And now we have a dynamic spreadsheet. Whereas before we had written the number 15 in, we now have a reference to another cell that we can change. That's, well, could depend on, you know, what the guess is. Maybe it's 0.7. Maybe this number is really 0.2 and this one is 0.1. And these all add up to 100% or 1. And there we have 14, 4, and 2. These numbers are dynamic, and they're also based on this number changing. So we could have a situation where after we calculated the budget, we found out that 5 people can't make it to the party. And so we could quickly go up here to the top and just type in 15, hit enter, and all of our budgets are now changed based on having only 15 people here. These numbers still are 0.7, 0.2, and 0.1, but these numbers have now changed. And I know we can't have half a person, but that's still going to get us a close estimate in terms of the final total. So it doesn't really matter that it's here at 10.5 or 1.5. That's still going to get us close to a final answer. And this may not be ideal for this particular situation, that a half number could be listed, and we could fix that. But this is just to give you a sense of the principle or of the idea that you can change any of these to whatever you'd like, and you'd have a more dynamic spreadsheet. So this could be 0.2, and this could be 0 if you wanted. These numbers are changing based on a reference to this cell and a reference to this cell. And so really what I would do is some variation of this for each, the best guess, the high budget, and the low budget, that a much more dynamic spreadsheet would be appropriate for this situation. Anywhere where we typed in or what we call hard-coded a number into the into the formula, that we go in and change that. So it's just always showing references to other numbers in other places. Get in this habit as quickly as you can. Let me show you one place before, again, where we violated that rule. Here down for sales tax, we typed in 0.06. But really what I've liked to have seen on your spreadsheet, if you were doing this and submitting it to me for a grade, I would have liked to have seen you put 0.06 over here to the left. And then in this formula, you would take out the 0.06 and then reference 0.06 by clicking that cell there for A33 and hitting enter. The best I can tell you is that we often kind of make this mistake of typing in 0.06, and we just get in that habit because it just feels more natural. And then what good programmers do, what good Excel experts do, is they go around looking for these, and they take that 0.06, they write it over here, they come back into the cell, and instead of hard coding, that's the expression 0.06, they just reference this cell, and now it's a more dynamic spreadsheet with what a programmer would call dry code, that the person's not repeating themselves. If you ever needed to change 0.06 in another situation, or like it would happen here, we could do sales tax of not 0.06, but we could just reference this number, A33. And then we could go over to the last option as well and say it's not 0.06, but we want to reference this number right here. Okay, so all three of these estimates now rely on this percentage right here. So the sales tax, you'll see $47 is of 780, so it's taking 6% of 780. And so this is also taking 6% of 1,160 to give it 70. But if I go in here now and all of a sudden the sales tax rate changes to, I hope it never gets to this, 10%, and I hit the tab key, you'll see that both this number and this number changed. Why? Because they both refer to this number. So this idea is very important. You'll see it all the time in the future spreadsheets that I build. And it's something you should just try and get in the habit of right away. It'll make your spreadsheets better, more dynamic, and you'll follow that principle of dry code that we talked about in the previous video.